Assalamualaikum and a very good day. Our group will be presenting on chapter 26, which is Internal and Governmental Financial Auditing and Operational Auditing. My name is Afrina Izazi Nabiha binti Rosman, and I will start with the introduction part. Internal financial auditing is an independent, objective assurance and consulting activity designed to add value and improve an organization's operations. Internal financial auditing helps an organization accomplish its objectives by bringing a systematic, disciplined approach to evaluate and improve the effectiveness of risk management, control and also governance processes. This definition reflects to the changing role of internal auditors. They are expected to provide value to the organization through improved operational effectiveness while performing traditional responsibilities such as reviewing the reliability and integrity of information, ensuring compliance with policies and regulations, and lastly is safeguarding the assets. Okay, next I will talk about Institute of Internal Auditors Malaysia, IIAM. Professional guidance for internal auditors is provided by Institute of Internal Auditors Malaysia, IIAM, which an organization that establish ethical and practice standards, also provide education and encourage professionalism for its approximately members. There are two professional guidance of internal auditors. The first one is Institute of Internal Auditors Ethical Principles and Code of Ethics. Under this guidance, there are four elements. The first one is integrity. The integrity of internal auditors establish trust and thus provides the basis of reliance on their judgment. The next one is objectivity. Internal auditors exhibit the highest level of professional objectivity in gathering, evaluating, and communicating information about the activity or process being examined. Internal auditors make a balanced assessment of all the relevant circumstances and are not unduly influenced by their own interests or by others in forming judgments. And next one is confidentiality. Internal auditors respect the value and ownership of information they receive and do not disclose information without appropriate authority unless there is a legal or professional obligation to do so. Last one is competency. Internal auditors apply the knowledge, skills and experience needed in the performance of internal auditing services. The second one is Institute of Internal Auditors Professional Practice Standards. Under this guidance, there are two standards, which is attribute standards and also performance standards. Under attribute standards, there are the first element is purpose, authority and responsibility. The purpose, authority and responsibility of the audit activity must be formally defined in an independent audit charter consistent with the internal audit charter and present it to senior management and the board for approval. Next one is independence and objectivity. The internal audit activity must be independent and internal auditors must be objective in performing their work. Next one is proficiency and due professional care. Engagements must be performed must be performed with proficiency and due professional care. Last one in under attribute standards is quality assurance and improvement program. The chief audit executive must develop and maintain a quality assurance and improvement program that cover all aspects of the internal audit activity. Okay, next one is performance standards. Under performance standard, they are managing the internal audit activity. The chief audit executive must effectively manage the internal audit activity to ensure it adds value to the organization. Next one is nature of work. The internal audit activity must evaluate and contribute to the improvement of risk management, control and governance process using a systematic and disciplined approach. Next one is engagement planning. Internal auditors must develop a plan for each engagement, including the document engagement, objective, scope, timing, and resource allocation. Next one is performing the engagement. Internal auditors must identify, analyze, and document sufficient information to achieve the engagement's objective. Not only that, communicating results, which is internal auditors must communicate the engagement results. Next is monitoring progress. The chief audit executive must establish and maintain a system to monitor the disposition of results, communicate to management. Last one is management's acceptance of risk. When the chief audit executive believe that senior management has accepted a level of residual risk that may be unacceptable to the organization, the chief audit executive must discuss the matter with senior management. If the decision regarding residual risk is not resolved, the chief audit executive must report the matter to the board for resolution. The next one is relationship of internal and external auditors. Both internal and external auditors share many similarities. The first one is both must be competent as auditors and remain objective in performing their work and reporting their results. Next one is both must follow a similar methodology in performing their audits, including planning and performing tests of controls and substantive tests. Next one is both must consider risk and materiality in deciding the extent of their tests and evaluating results. However, their decisions about materiality and risk may differ because external users may have different needs that management or boards must do. The differences between these two types of auditors is internal auditors are responsible to the management and external auditors responsible to the financial statement users who rely on auditors to add credibility to the statements.
Assalamualaikum, and my name is Fatin Shaira, and I will proceed with Audit Act 1957. Using guidance from Audit Manual, Auditor General is responsible to audit account of the Federation and the state, fund established in the state or a federal territory Article 97, public authority, other corporate body and the receipt of a grant or loan from a federation or a state, also other fund. An audit manual defines the authority and scope of internal audit function, document requirement, and provide a set of the consistent guideline and procedure. This policy promotes consistency, stability, and continuity, as well as appropriate performance expectation and a method of managing audit personnel effort efficiently. Proceed to audit and reporting requirements, which are Audit Act 1957, JAN, Jabatan Audit Negara, Practice and Experience, and standard used by accounting profession that enhance financial reporting, transparency in accounting, and also accounting standard make the financial statement credible and allow for more economic decisions based on the accurate and consistent information. Next is International Organization or Supreme Audit Institution (INTOSAI), an intergovernmental organization whose members are supreme audit institutions that vested interest in ensuring that strong internal audit unit exists when needed. Those audit units constitute an important element of internal control by providing a continuous means for improving an organization's operation. Lastly, are the Supreme Audit Institution, ASO, SAI, one of the regional group of the International Organization of Supreme Audit Institution (INTOSAI). The member of the ASOSAI consists of chartered member, and associate member. We're moving on to financial auditing standards, which are materiality and significance, the sensitivity of the government activity and the public accountability determine the audit risk and materiality acceptance level. Next is quality control. They have an appropriate system of internal quality control and participate in the external quality control review program. Auditors involved in planning, performing, or reporting on audit under GAGAS must complete 80 hours of the continuity professional education in each 2-year period. At least 24 of these 80 hours of training must be in subject related to the government environment and government auditing. Next is compliant auditing. The audit should be designed to provide reasonable assurance of detecting material misstatement caused by non-compliance with contract or grant agreement provision that have a material and direct impact on the financial statement. Next is reporting. The audit report must state that the audit followed generally accepted government auditing standard (GAGAS). Furthermore, the financial statement report must describe the scope of the auditor's test of the compliance with law and regulation, as well as the internal control, and present the result of those tests or refer to a separate report that includes the information. Last is audit file and working paper. Next part is reporting a requirement of Audit Act 1957. The audit should follow general accepted government auditing standard (GAGAS). The auditor must gain a sufficient understanding of internal control over federal program to support a law-assigned level of a control risk for major program. The auditor should also evaluate whether the client complies with the law, regulation, and contract or grant agreement provision that could have a direct material impact on each of its massive programs. The Auditor General of Malaysia's job is to public accountability by conducting independent audit on the account of the federal government, state government and federal statutory body, as well as the activity of federal and state government ministry, department and company. Here, general guidance of auditor are have a good understanding of the federal constitution and other basic law, good understanding of Audit Act 1957, audit concept, standard and practice, use guide government auditing standard and circular A133 audit, also AU801 compliance auditing consideration in audit of governmental entity and recipient of governmental financial assistance.
My name is Arifah Zakira binti Zamfiri. I will present about operational audit. The purpose of operational audit is to determine the effectiveness or efficiency of any part of an organization, a future-oriented, systematic, and independent evaluation of organizational activities. Okay, next, three type different of operational audit and financial audit. Okay, first, purpose of the audit. Second, distribution of the report. And last, inclusion of non-financial area. Okay, first, different is purpose of audit. Okay, for operational audit can improve the efficiency and effectiveness of an organization and focus on improving future performance. Okay, for financial auditing can improve whether historical information was correctly recorded and oriented to the past. Second difference is distribution of the report. Okay, for operational audit, the report are intended primarily for management. Auditor performing operational audit are employee of the entity and hence controlled by the management, does not have a standard format and need to be made public. Okay, for financial auditing, the report are typically distributed to external user of financial statement. Professional who are performing financial audit or external auditor that are not controlled by the management, has a standard format and must be published publicly. Last is inclusion of non-financial area. Okay, for operational auditing can cover any aspect of efficiency and effectiveness in and okay, next for financial auditing. Financial auditing limited to matter that directly affect the fairness of financial statement presentation. That's all from me. I will pass to next presenter.
Okay, next, I will continue the part of effectiveness versus efficiency. Effectiveness refers to the accomplishments of the objectives that has been assigned to the company. For example, in certain a company, a production part must be without any defects. In operational audit for effectiveness, an auditor might need to assess whether a governmental agency has met its assigned objective of achieving elevator safety in a city. To determine the agency's effectiveness, the auditor must establish specific criteria elevator safety. Next is efficiency. Efficiency is defined as reducing costs without reducing effectiveness. For example, determine the resources to achieve this objective, such as whether part as produced at a minimum cost and the lower cost. Like effectiveness, there must be defined criteria for what is meant by doing things more efficiently before operational audits can be meaningful. For example, if two different production processes manufacture a product of identical quality, the process with a lower cost is considered more efficient. Next is operational auditing commonly uncovers several types of inefficiencies, including the first one is acquisitions of goods and service that is too costly. For example, bids for a purchase of material that are not required or not anymore necessary. The second inefficiencies is raw material are not available when needed. This occurred when an assembly line was shut down for lack of material. And the third one is duplications of effort by employees exist. For example, productions and accounting keep identical records. And the next one is work is done that serve no purpose. The thing that can be taken as for the example is a vendor's invoice and receiving report are filled without being used. And the last one is there are too many employees, such as office work could be done by less or only one assistant.
Next is the relationship between operating, auditing, and internal control. The management has established internal control to help meet its goals. Therefore, there are three most common concerns that are vital to establishing good internal control. The first one is availability of financial reporting. The second one is efficiencies and effectiveness of operation. And the third one is compliance with applicable laws and regulations. Obviously, the second of these clients are concerned directly related to the operational auditing. But the other two also affect efficiencies and effectiveness. For example, management needs reliable cost accounting information to decide which product to continue producing and the buying process of product. Similarly, if the company is failure to comply with the law, such as the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, this can result the company in a large fine of the company. Next, I will go further in relationship between operational auditing and internal control. The first one is efficiencies and effectiveness of operations. The operating auditing has to deal with the efficiencies and effectiveness of the organization. The second one is availability of financial reporting. The availability of financial reporting has a responsibility to ensure that financial reporting is fairly presented and comply with the approved accounting standard. And the last one is compliance with applicable laws and regulations. As I said before, failure to comply with the applicable laws and regulations can result a large fine to the company.
Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Emilia Badisha binti Aziz and I will continue with the types of operational audits. Operational audits consist of three, which are functional audits, organizational audits, and special assignments. Okay, first we will talk about functional audits. Okay, functions are means of categorizing the activity of a business, such as billing function or production function. Functions may be categorized and subdivided into a various way. For example, accounting function may be separated into three parts, which are cash disbursement, cash receipt, and payroll disbursement function. Functions audit deals with one or more functions in organizations, such as efficiency and effectiveness of the payroll function for a division or for the entire company. It has the advantage of permitting specialization by auditors, and certain auditors and internal audit staff can gain significant expertise in a particular area, such as production engineering, and spending all of their time auditing in the area will allow them to be more efficient and effective. Meanwhile, the disadvantage of the functional auditing is the failure to evaluate interrelated functions. For example, the manufacturing and other functions in an organization interact with the production of engineering function. Okay, the second one is the organizational audits. Okay, so an operational audit of an organization deals with the entire organization unit, such as department, branch, or subsidiary. Next, an organizational audit focuses on how efficiently and effectively functions interact. And lastly is the organizational plan and methods for coordinating activities are essential in this type of audit. And the third one is the special assignment. Okay, special assignment for a wide variety of audit arise in operational auditing at the request of the management. For example, defining the cause of ineffective IT system, investigating the probability of fraud in a division, and providing recommendation for reducing the cost of a manufactured product. Okay, next we will talk about who performs the operational audits. Okay, operational audits are usually performed by one of the three groups, which are internal auditors, government auditors, and CPA firm. Okay, the first group is the internal auditor. Both operational and financial audit are done by internal audit department. Internal audits have an advantage in doing operational audit since they spend most of their time working for the company they are auditing. And they may develop considerable knowledge about the company and its business, which are crucial to the effective operational auditing. And in order to maximize the effectiveness for both financial and operational auditing, the internal audit department should report to the board of director or president. Moreover, internal audit have access to an ongoing communication with the audit committee of the board of director, and this organizational structure will help internal auditor to remain independent. Okay, the second group is the government auditor. Different federal and state government auditors perform operational auditing often as a part of doing financial audit. The GAO is the most widely recognized government auditor group. However, many state government auditors are also concerned with financial and operational audits. The Yellow Book classify and set standards for performance audit, which are crucial as operational audits. Performance audit include economy and efficiency audit and program audit. The purpose of an economy and efficiency audit is to determine, first, whether the entity is acquiring, protecting, and using its resources economically and efficiently. Next, the causes of inefficiencies or uneconomical practices. And the third one is whether the entity has complied with laws and regulations concerning matters of economy and efficiency. Meanwhile, the purpose of program audit is to determine the extent which the desired results or benefits established by the legislature or other body are being achieved. Second, the effectiveness of organizations, program, activities, or function. And lastly, whether the entity has complied with law and regulation applicable to the program. The last group is CPA firm. Part of the audit consists of classifying operational problems and providing suggestions that may benefit the audit clients. It can be made orally but typically included in a management letter. The background knowledge about the client's business often provides useful information for giving operational suggestions. Next, clients commonly engage a CPA firms to do operational auditing for one or more specific part of its business. And lastly, management engage with CPA firm only when the company does not have an internal audit staff or if the internal audit staff lacks expertise in a certain area. Okay, next, I will continue with the two most important qualities for an operational auditors, which are independence and competence. Okay, when we talk about independence, it is equivalent to the things that made without bias. Thus, the auditor should report to the appropriate level of management to ensure that the investigation and recommendation are made without bias. And for the CPA firm, independence is seldom a problem because they are not employed by the company that being audited. However, for internal auditor, of course, independence can be an issue, but independence is enhanced by having internal audit department report to the board of directors or presidents. Meanwhile, for the government auditors, it is similar to the internal auditor because they should also report to a level above the operating documents. And lastly, the responsibilities of operational auditors can also affect the independence. The auditors should not be responsible for operating functions in a company or for correcting deficiencies when ineffective or inefficient operations are found. Okay, next we will move on to the competence. Okay, competence is of course necessary to determine the cause of operational problems and to make appropriate suggestion, but competence can be a major obstacle when operational auditing deals with wide-ranging operation problems. And operational auditing can be difficult because it can be hard to choose specific criteria to determining whether efficiency and effectiveness have been achieved. An accounting standard has set the broad criteria for determining whether the presentation is fair. The audit objective makes it easier to look at more specific criteria to see if the standards have been followed. However, in operational auditing, there are no specific guidelines. In order to set standard for operational auditing, Auditors should assume that the purpose is to figure out if some areas of the organization could be more effective and efficient and instead suggest ways to improve them. Okay, so that's all from me, and I will pass to my other group mates to continue.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Hashami bin Cik Ghazali. So the next part I will present is about the criteria for evaluating efficiency and effectiveness. So selecting specific criteria for evaluating whether efficiency and effectiveness of worker is known as the major challenge of operational auditing. So in auditing historical financial statements, accounting standard will be provide the broad criteria for evaluating fair presentation, and audit objectives facilitate more specific criteria in deciding whether the standard will have been followed or not. So what I learned in this topic is in operational auditing there are no well-defined criteria. So to establish the specific criteria for operational auditing, usually our auditors could define the objective as determining whether some aspect of the entity could be made more effective or efficient. So more effective or efficient is the main objectives for this criteria, and the auditor will give the recommendation improvement for their problems. So this approach may be adequate for experienced and well-trained auditors, but it will provide little guidance for mass auditors. So for the specific criteria, usually desirable before starting an operational audit. As example, we are doing operational audit from the equipment layout in plant for a company. So we will give some question that we use to evaluate the plant's layout. So as you can see here, this is some example of the question that we will ask for evaluate. First is were all plans layout approved by home office engineering at the time of original design? Is each piece of equipment operating at 60% of capacity or more for at least 3 months each year? Does the plan layout effectively use existing equipment? So the next is the other is also the example of question that we ask for the company to evaluate the company plan. So that's all for the specific criteria. We move to the sources of criteria. So to develop this specific evaluation criteria, that means a source of criteria. Usually the operational auditor can use several sources. First of all is historical performance. This criteria can be based on actual result from prior periods. By using this method, the auditors can determine whether things have become better or become worse in comparison. So this method, many the auditor use it because they are easy to derive. The next is benchmarking. Entities within or outside the client organization may be sufficiently similar to the client organization to use their operating result as criteria. So auditor should use care in selecting organization to use as benchmark. So here means auditor have to study the organization to select to become their benchmark. So for internal comparable entities, the data usually often readily available to use as criteria. Also, benchmarking data are often available through industry groups and governmental regulatory agencies. So data point is engineering standard. It may be possible in some engagement to develop criteria based on engineering standard. For example, auditor can use time and motion studies to determine efficient production output rates. These criteria are often time consuming and costly to develop because they require considerable expertise, but in some cases it may be worth the cost. So the last is discussion and agreements. Sometimes objective criteria are difficult or costly to attain and are best developed through discussion and agreement. The party involved should include management of the entity to be audited or person to whom finding will be reported. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Khair Najmuddin bin Abdul Majid, and I will present for my part, which is the phases in operational audit. So first of all, I will explain what is the phases in the operational audit. So there are 3 phases in operational audit. So the first one is planning, and second one is the evidence accumulations and evaluations, and the last one is reporting and follow up. Okay, so firstly I will explain about the planning. So planning is the auditor to plan for an operational audit that are similar to the planned historical financial statements, such as auditor's financial statements. So, this is for determine the scope of engagement and communicate with the organization unit. So this planning is to engage with the staff, and the second one is to decide which one is the proper or the best evidence, and the third one is to gain information from the organization, and the last one is to understand the internal controls. Okay, so for the last point in planning in operational audit, is planning in operational audit best describes to engage or to gain info from the organization staff, so that auditors can help their clients to improve their performance by determine or by identify which part of the organization is have to improve more, that helps them to have a better performance. So for the second phase of operational auditing, which is the evidence accumulations and evaluations. So basically this phase is about the internal controls and the operational part, because these two parts are the most crucial parts in an organization. So basically the evidence or the material used is the documentation, analytical procedure, client's inquiry, and the observations extensively. So for the performance and recalculation are less extensively for the financial audit, because accuracy existence are not relevant in operational audit. Evidence accumulation and evaluation also can express the opinion of the auditor whether the financial statement presents the true and fair view, and also it can enhance the credibility and efficiency of an organization. Operational audit also can improve the profit and efficiency by help the management to understand how their works or how their operations works with the financial systems, so that this can attract more shareholders or investors to their company to invest more to their organization. So after the evaluations and the accumulation for the evidence, auditors can decide whether or which part of the organization should be improved and be followed up by the organization itself. So it can help them to improve in their operation. So for conclusion, for the evidence accumulations and evaluations, this evaluation is performed in operational audit, that is auditors has to make or must accumulate the evidence that based on their auditing process. Then auditors have to evaluate and put a conclusion for the objective that have been tested. So which one that have to be followed up for the organization, and which one that have to be improved more for the organization. So for the last phase for the operational auditing, which is reporting and follow up. So in operational audit, reports are usually were sent to the managers or sent to the management of the organization, with one copy to the unit being audited. So operational audit requires a tailoring to each report to address the scope of the audit findings and recommendations. So operational audit also often the significant amount that can easier and clearer to communicate with the audit finding and recommendations. Follow up are the most common phase in every organization that being audited, and follow up is best describes to if not and why not that the procedures that have been to be follow up. So after these three phases that has been made by the auditors, the organization or the interested parties may or they can follow, or if they want and if they don't want to follow. So I want to conclude in this part, which is the 3 phases in operational audit, which is the first phase is we have planning, which auditors is identifying or to determine which part of the organization that must be audit. So for the second phase, for the next phase is to evaluations and accumulations in evidence. So in this phase, basically auditors will be examine the documentations and analytical procedures and also the client's inquiry. And so for the next is after the accumulation is for evaluation, for the auditors to evaluate which part that must be take action by the organizations. And the last part is the follow up and reporting. So for the follow up and reporting, which is when the auditors have done evaluate and done accumulate all the evidence, they have to decide and give conclusions to the organization or the interested parties, for them to make their own decision, which is if they want to follow or not, and if they want, they have to follow all the procedures that have been stated or by the auditors.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Sahil Akil. Okay, today I will present about the example of operational audit findings. For the first one, which is in Japan, we found that Japanese auto firm had an incorrect actuarial formula in their computer system that increased auto warranty insurance reserve by over 1 million above that actually needed. So, correcting the formula resulted in the immediate availability of 1 million for the bottom line. Okay, next, which is inefficient manager, which is in Alaska, that an oil company had a 400 million 3 years contract with a large international engineering construction firm to produce and ship needed oil recovery system component to the Alaskan pipeline in the 1980s. The contract was cost plus, so that engineering firm in Pasadena assigned very weak managers to the project and did not implement any performance tracking system. We found so many process errors with loss, blueprint, backlog deliveries, and etc. that the oil firm did not renew the contract and never did business with the engineering firm for at least 15 years. We had discovered that all the managers for the engineering firm were retired officers from the Air Force, and they had no experience in establishing cost and performance tracking system. For the last point, which is uncharted staff, which is we found that in California. A California county government agency processed 60 million worth of cash receipt and payment a year. They were receiving revenue and cost sharing check for several different federal and state governments without any central cash management system. Our analysis found that hiring 2 cash management specialists to track down and ensure incoming checks were recorded and deposited immediately would increase treasury interest income by 9 million a year. Unfortunately, the promoted social worker who managed the personal budget could not understand cash flow and would not approve the 2 positions. A year later, the county was sued for a 90 million difference in funds owed an investment banking house because county management also ignored separate control recommendation we provided in audit report for the same audit. The county treasurer was understaffed, thus they had a faulty method of tracking investment order given to the investment banker and lost track of order position, resulting in significant losses in stock value. After several months, the stock market went up, reversing the losses to a brighter position, and lawsuit was dropped. So that's all from us. Thank you.